Have you ever felt like the world is moving on without you? The phone doesn't ring as often as it used to. The invitations come less frequently. People seem busy building their own lives while you're left, wondering where you fit into the picture. As the years pass, relationships change, children grow up, friends move away, loved ones pass on, and sometimes, in the quiet moments, a painful question begins to settle into your heart. Has everyone forgotten about me? Maybe you felt invisible in rooms where you once felt valued. Maybe you've watched your role in other people's lives become smaller. Maybe you've wondered if your best years are behind you. If so, God wants you to hear something tonight. The feeling of being forgotten is real. The loneliness can be real. The sadness can be real. But the conclusion that you are forgotten is not, because while people may become distracted, busy, or distant, God has never lost sight of you, not for a single day, not for a single moment. He knows your name. He knows your story. He knows the sacrifices you've made, the tears you've cried, and the love you've given throughout your life. And what God sees when He looks at you is not someone whose value is fading. He sees someone whose life still matters, someone whose purpose is not finished, someone who is deeply loved. And before this message is over, you may begin to see yourself the way God sees you, not forgotten, not overlooked, not left behind, but remembered, treasured, and still important in ways you may not yet realize. God understands the loneliness you rarely talk about, the loneliness that doesn't always come from being physically alone, the loneliness that comes from feeling unseen, from feeling like fewer people need you than they once did, from wondering whether anyone truly notices what you're carrying in your heart. There may have been a time when your days were filled with activity. People depended on you. Your phone rang constantly. Your schedule was full. Your presence seemed important to everyone around you. But life changes. Families grow. Children build their own lives. Friendships shift. Communities change. And sometimes those changes leave an empty space that nobody else seems to notice. You notice it when the house feels quieter than it used to. You notice it during holidays that don't feel the same anymore. You notice it when memories become more frequent than conversations. You notice it when you reach for the phone and realize there is nobody to call. Those moments can be painful, not because you're weak, but because you were created for connection. You were created to love and to be loved, to give and receive care, to share your life with others. And when those connections change, it can feel like a part of your world has changed too. Perhaps you've even asked yourself questions you never expected to ask. Do I still matter? Does anyone notice me anymore? Have I become easy to forget? Those questions can quietly settle into the heart, and the longer they stay there, the more they begin to feel like truth. But tonight, God wants to gently challenge those thoughts. Because being less visible does not mean being less valuable. Being older does not mean being less important. Being alone does not mean being forgotten. The world often measures people by how busy they are, how productive they are, or how much attention they receive. God does not. He sees something deeper. He sees your character, your kindness, your faithfulness, your wisdom, your resilience. He sees every act of love that shaped someone's life, every sacrifice nobody thanked you for, every prayer you prayed for people who may never know. Nothing has been wasted, nothing has been forgotten, and neither have you, even when others don't fully understand your journey. God understands it completely. Even when people fail to see your worth, God sees it clearly. Even when loneliness whispers that you no longer matter, God's voice speaks something stronger. You are still valuable. You are still needed. You are still loved. And your story is not over. There is more purpose in your life than you can currently see, more meaning than you realize, more impact than you know, because God has never measured your value by how many people remember you. Your value comes from the fact that He never forgets you. Right now, in this very moment, God is closer than you realize, closer than the loneliness, closer than the silence, closer than the memories that sometimes bring tears to your eyes. You may not always feel His presence. There may be days when the house feels empty, days when the quiet seems overwhelming, days when you wonder if anyone truly understands what you're going through. But even in those moments, God is there. He is there when you sit alone at the kitchen table. He is there when you look through old photographs. He is there when you remember people you miss. He is there during the long evenings when the hours seem to move slowly. He is there during the nights when sleep is difficult because your heart feels heavy. God has never stepped away from your life. Not when relationships changed, not when loved ones moved away, not when grief entered your story, not when you felt overlooked, not when you questioned your purpose. His presence has remained constant through every chapter. The truth is, there have been many moments when God carried you without you even realizing it, moments when your strength should have run out, but somehow you kept going, moments when your heart was broken, yet healing slowly came, moments when you felt alone, yet help arrived exactly when you needed it. That wasn't luck, that wasn't coincidence, that was God's faithfulness, quietly working in your life, and He is still working today. Sometimes we expect God's presence to arrive in dramatic ways, but often His presence is found in smaller things. A sudden feeling of peace, a kind word from a stranger, a memory that makes you smile, a sunrise that reminds you life is still beautiful, a quiet reassurance that everything will be okay. God speaks through these moments because He wants you to know that He is near. He wants you to know that your life still matters, that your story still matters, that your future still matters. You may feel forgotten by people at times, but you have never been forgotten by God. He knows every detail of your life, every joy, every sorrow, every prayer, every disappointment, every hope that still remains hidden inside your heart. Nothing escapes His attention. Nothing is too small for His care. And here's what God wants you to hear today. You are not walking through this season alone. The same God who was with you in your younger years is with you now. The same God who guided you through previous challenges is still guiding you. Same God who loved you then loves you now. His love has not grown weaker with time. His care has not diminished. His plans for your life have not disappeared. Even in seasons of loneliness, His presence remains. Even in seasons of change, His love remains. Even when the world feels distant, God remains close. And that truth can bring a peace that loneliness cannot take away. Because when God is with you, you are never truly alone. One of the hardest battles people face as they grow older is not always visible to others. It happens quietly, deep inside the heart. It's the battle against feeling forgotten, the battle against believing that your most meaningful days are behind you, the battle against the fear that your role in the world is becoming smaller. These thoughts rarely arrive all at once. They appear little by little, a phone call that never comes, a birthday that feels different than it once did, a gathering where fewer people seem to notice your presence, a moment when you realize life has changed more than you expected. Over time, these experiences can create a quiet ache, not because you need constant attention, but because every human heart longs to know it still matters, and that is where the invisible battle begins. The enemy of your peace wants you to believe a lie, the lie that your value decreases with age, the lie that your purpose has expired, the lie that your best contribution is already behind you, the lie that being less noticed means being less important. But none of those things are true, because God's view of your life is completely different. While the world often celebrates youth, speed, and visibility, God sees things through a different lens. He sees wisdom, He sees faithfulness, He sees lessons learned through decades of experience, He sees a life that has weathered storms and kept moving forward. He sees strength that was built through challenges. He sees compassion that was shaped through loss. He sees understanding that only time can create. The world may overlook those things. God never does. And perhaps that's why this battle feels so personal, because it isn't really about age. It's about significance. It's about wondering whether your life still carries purpose, whether your presence still matters, whether anyone truly sees the value that remains within you. God's answer is clear. Yes, you still matter. You still have purpose. You still have something valuable to give. Your ability to encourage someone, your wisdom, your prayers, your kindness, your example, your faith. These things continue to impact lives in ways you may never fully see. And here's what you've been missing. Some of the most important work God does through people happens quietly, not on stages, not in headlines, not in ways that attract attention, but through conversations, acts of love, moments of encouragement, faithfulness behind the scenes. The world may not celebrate those things, but heaven notices every one of them. That's why you must not allow loneliness to become your identity. You must not allow changing relationships to determine your worth. You must not allow silence to convince you that your life has lost meaning, because God still sees tremendous value in you. The battle is not between being remembered or forgotten by people. The battle is between believing what loneliness says and believing what God says. Loneliness says you're no longer needed. God says you still have purpose. Loneliness says your impact is over. God says your influence continues. Loneliness says you've been forgotten. God says, I know your name, I know your story, and I have never taken my eyes off you. That truth is stronger than every fear, stronger than every doubt, stronger than every lonely moment, because even when life changes, God's view of your value never does. And that is the truth that can begin setting your heart free. And this is where the story begins to change, not because the past suddenly disappears, not because every lonely moment is erased, not because relationships instantly become what they once were. The change begins when you start seeing yourself through God's eyes instead of through your circumstances. For a long time, you may have been measuring your value by what has changed. The people who moved away, the loved ones you've lost, the roles you no longer hold, the opportunities that belong to another season of life. And without realizing it, you may have started believing that less activity means less purpose, that fewer responsibilities mean less significance, that growing older means becoming less important. But God wants to replace that perspective with something better, because your worth has never depended on how busy you are. Your purpose has never depended on how many people call you. Your value has never depended on how visible you are to others. Your value comes from who created you, and God has not changed his mind about you, not once. Think about everything you've lived through, the challenges you overcame, the lessons you learned, the people you helped, the love you gave, the sacrifices you made. Those experiences were not meaningless chapters. They were preparation. Preparation for the wisdom you carry today. Preparation for the encouragement you can offer. Preparation for the faith that now lives inside you. What if this season is not about losing purpose? What if it's about discovering purpose in a different form? What if God is inviting you to stop looking backward and start looking upward? Because the truth is, your influence did not end when life changed. It simply changed shape. A kind word can change someone's day. A prayer can impact a life you may never fully see. A conversation can bring hope to a hurting heart. Your presence can still bring comfort. Your wisdom can still bring direction. Your faith can still inspire others. These things matter more than you know. And here's what many people miss. The later chapters of life often contain some of the deepest purpose, not because of physical strength, not because of worldly success, but because wisdom has a unique power, a wisdom that comes from surviving storms, a wisdom that comes from learning what truly matters, a wisdom that comes from walking with God through many seasons. That wisdom is a gift, and God is not finished using it. Tonight, He wants you to release the belief that your most meaningful days are behind you, because He still has opportunities for you to love, opportunities for you to encourage, opportunities for you to impact lives, opportunities for you to experience joy. Your story is not shrinking, it is still unfolding, and the turning point begins when you stop asking, "Have I been forgotten?" and start remembering, God still has a purpose for me. Because when that truth settles into your heart, hope begins to return. Not a loud hope, not a dramatic hope, a steady hope, a peaceful hope. The kind of hope that reminds you that your life still matters, that your presence still matters, and that God is still writing beautiful chapters you have not yet seen. Before God restores confidence, He often restores identity, because after years of feeling overlooked, it becomes easy to forget who you truly are. You begin to see yourself through the lens of what you've lost, the people who are no longer here, the relationships that changed, the opportunities that passed, the seasons that ended, and without realizing it, you start defining yourself by absence instead of truth. But God does not define you by what is missing. He defines you by what remains, and there is far more remaining than you realize. You are not someone whose value has faded with time. You are someone whose value has been refined by time. Every year of your life has added something meaningful to who you are. Wisdom, patience, compassion, understanding, strength, faith. These are treasures that cannot be measured by age, appearance, or popularity, yet they are some of the most valuable qualities a person can possess. God sees those qualities in you, even when you don't see them yourself. He sees the courage it took to keep going after heartbreak, the faith it took to keep believing after disappointment, the resilience it took to face challenges that others never knew about. He sees every chapter of your story, not just the happy ones, all of them, and when He looks at your life, He does not see someone forgotten. He sees someone cherished, someone known, someone deeply loved. The world often places too much value on youth and too little value on wisdom, too much value on visibility and too little value on character. But God's perspective is different. He is not impressed by status. He is not distracted by popularity. He looks at the heart, and your heart matters to Him more than you can imagine. Tonight, God wants you to stop speaking about yourself as though your life is winding down into insignificance, because that is not how He sees you. You are still capable of making a difference, still capable of giving love, still capable of receiving love, still capable of experiencing purpose, still capable of bringing light into someone else's darkness. Your usefulness has not expired. Your purpose has not expired. Your value has not expired. In fact, some of the most beautiful qualities within you have been developed through the years you've lived. The kindness that comes from understanding pain, the empathy that comes from experience, the patience that comes from growth, the wisdom that comes from walking through life with God. These things are precious, and they continue to matter. Perhaps you've spent too much time focusing on what has changed. Tonight, God is inviting you to focus on what remains. His love remains. Your purpose remains. Your worth remains. Your ability to impact others remains. And, most importantly, God's plans for your life remain. You are not forgotten. You are not overlooked. You are not standing on the sidelines of God's story. You are still part of it. Still loved, still chosen, still sane, still valuable, and nothing, not age, loneliness, distance, or changing relationships can take away the identity God has placed within you. You belong to Him, and that truth will never change. And now, after all the loneliness, all the questions, and all the moments when you wondered whether anyone still saw you, God wants to show you something beautiful. Your life is still making a difference, even when you cannot see it, even when nobody says thank you, even when the results are invisible. One of the greatest surprises in life is discovering that God often uses us in ways we never fully understand. A kind word you spoke years ago may still be encouraging someone today. A prayer you prayed may still be shaping a life. An act of love you barely remember may still be touching a heart. The world teaches us to look for visible results. God often works through invisible impact, and that means your story is far more meaningful than you realize. You may feel forgotten by people at times, but heaven has not forgotten a single act of faithfulness, not one prayer, not one sacrifice, not one moment of kindness, not one tear. God remembers them all, and because He remembers, your life continues to matter. Here's what many people discover too late. Purpose does not disappear with age. It often deepens. The later chapters of life can hold extraordinary beauty, not because they are free from challenges, but because they are filled with wisdom, perspective, and spiritual depth that younger years often cannot provide. You have survived things that taught you valuable lessons. You have gained understanding that only experience can create. You have developed a faith that has been tested and strengthened over time. Those gifts are powerful, and God is still using them. There are still people who need your encouragement, still people who need your wisdom, still people who need your example, still people whose lives may be touched simply because you choose to keep showing up. That's why this season is not the end of your significance. It is another chapter of it, a chapter that may look different from earlier ones, but different does not mean less important. God is still opening opportunities for connection, still opening opportunities for joy, still opening opportunities for purpose, still opening opportunities for love. And perhaps the breakthrough you need most is not being remembered by everyone around you. Perhaps the breakthrough is finally realizing that your worth never depended on that in the first place. Your worth comes from being known by God, seen by God, and remembered by God every moment of every day. When that truth settles into your heart, loneliness begins to lose its power, fear begins to lose its voice, and hope begins to grow again. Because your story is not ending. God is still writing it, and some of the most meaningful pages may still be ahead of you. The years ahead may hold more purpose, more peace, and more unexpected blessings than you can currently imagine. Not because life will be perfect, but because God will continue walking with you through every step of it, and wherever God is present, there is always hope. Tonight, if your heart has been carrying the weight of feeling forgotten, let that burden rest for a moment. Take a slow breath, and remember this truth. People may forget, circumstances may change, relationships may grow distant, but God never forgets you. He knows your name. He knows your story. He knows every joy you've celebrated and every sorrow you've carried. You are not invisible to Him. You are not overlooked. You are not forgotten. You are deeply loved. May God's peace fill the lonely places in your heart. May His presence bring comfort to every memory that still hurts. May His love remind you that your life still matters and your purpose is not finished. As you move forward, may you walk with confidence, knowing that the God who has guided you through every season will continue to guide you through the seasons ahead. The years behind you are part of your story, but they are not the end of it. There is still hope. There is still purpose. There is still joy to discover, and there is still a God who delights in you. Rest in that truth tonight. You are remembered, you are treasured, you are loved, and you will never be forgotten by God.